Hello, Kevin.
Hey Matt, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Welcome to everybody to the CROSS-EYED Crucible with my pal Kevin Martin and me, Matt Faulkner.
Yeah,
So
it's good to be here.
yeah, um, so we're here today primarily to answer just one question because we reviewed the tape from last week, and we saw that there was one thing that we really had wanted to do that we didn't actually accomplish.
Right. hmm I mean, I think it was like the most important thing almost when it came down to what it is that we're actually doing in the Cross-Eyed Crucible. Yeah,
So that's all good, you know. That's why we're here this week. So that's the thing. Uh, there's a lot of things that this cross-eyed crucible means to me, but there is an actual practice and a thing that we're going to do and that we're inviting people to do with us that's going to happen every week when we come in. So do you want to start or should I start? Do you want to, what do you think?
well, I can just go ahead and jump right in. And so, what we're asking out of you all, our audience, but not only just our audience, you as community members, right, is to jump into these stories with us. So what we'll actually be doing is we'll be tracking through stories throughout the globe, different mythological tales that is told throughout the world that we'll be tracking these, and we actually want you to participate in that tracking. And so, Matt, do you want to talk about what that looks like?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, the thing, like, right, we talked about this last night too. What is the word that you just used tracking, right?
Right.
But we can use a bunch of different words, and we'll bring those up. I'll bring those up in a minute. But one of the things that we're going to ask people to do is we'll pick out a story. You or I will record the story in sections. Probably if it's a long story, it'll be like 3 15-minute sections, something like that. But some of them will be much shorter. They'll just be one 15-minute section. And then we will do this that you call tracking. Some people call feeding the story. Excuse me. But we were talking about like what actually happened. So one of the aspects of story that I learned was that all of these ancient stories, they're not still here out of serendipity. They're not still with us
Right.
just because some multi-billionaire has put up, you know, a system to support them, so we all keep telling them. No. Um, Now, there's also an aspect of them that is the reason why they're still here is because they contain both a method and a truth.
Right.
So the truth part is that's probably one of the main reasons why they're still here. Because when people hear them, even though they'll call them fairy tales or myths, they'll say, "Oh, that's just a myth," you know,
Right. Exactly.
right? And it could be that one of the reasons why people do that is because the truth is so deep, it's hard to actually be with.
Right. Right. hmm
So that's one of the aspects of why the stories are still here. They ring true in a way that's even more true than sometimes a mathematical fact. Now, that's kind of a poetic statement, but it also goes back to, I think I shared it last week, that one of the when the great Jungian Robert Johnson went to a school with some elementary school kids and asked kids, "What is a myth?" After telling them, I think a myth, I think he had just told them a myth, maybe. One of the children stood up and said, "A myth is something that's true, not true on the outside, but
Outside.
true on the
True
inside."
on the inside. I remember that.
So to me, that's why I'm attracted to him, because I'm
Yeah.
getting answers to questions that the history books wouldn't give me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's why I love poetry. It's why I love painting. It's pointing to a truth that I want answers to. I want to be
Right.
present with. So then there's the other thing, the method of the story. And I'll just touch on this briefly. I was told once that stories don't have feeling, don't have emotion in them. They have hooks for us to hang our emotions on, which is interesting to me. I could go more into that, but I'll just say, okay, so that points to the fact that either it was a conscious thing from storytellers around the world before there was any internet, by the way, how they all knew that they were going to do this, to tell stories of this nature so that we could hang our stuff on them and talk about it and work it through.
Right.
Maybe
Right.
this is just a subconscious thing that the mind, and let's even go beyond that, that we were directed by a greater source power to do as a way to help each other heal. So that's one of the things in terms of the method. When I see this, and there's all sorts of really smart people that talked about this throughout time. One of
That's
them
right.
that everybody knows, Joseph Campbell. Yeah, that there's this thread that goes through all of these stories around the world that says there's something else going on here besides let's just tell some stories. So that's the other thing is, and that's one of the things I think you and I are trying to do in sharing this, is that we're going to track that method.
Right.
And okay, yeah.
And and I think that I think it's important to also mention too, right, that that this may come off as very gendered. So you have two men. You have a white male, you have a black male, and and we're going to guide and lead through this process. That this actually comes through or from a larger men's movement that we're actually a part of and steeped in, and how these stories got resurrected, right? In these gatherings is that there's some pointing to in the men's development that men are actually not maturing, are not fully developing into what it is to take responsibility or be accountable for one's life fully and wholly. And so what we're doing here is that we're actually processing our shit through these mythological tales, and we're trying to extract meaning out of these stories and the truth. So not only we're not doing this just for fun or play, but we're actually doing it because we're developing. We're actually developing with the story. And so as we are engaging with these stories actually take on a life of its own, and our connection to those stories take on a life of its own.
Yes.
Um, while we're two men who are talking about this from, from a very masculine point of view through men's gatherings, right? We do recognize that there are women who will have access to these conversations now, in that we have men from all different stripes, accessing and engaging. So how you're entering and how you're entering and nurturing and feeding and harvesting these stories are actually important to the conversation. And we want all viewpoints and perspectives. Okay, so I see Matt's mouth. He goes, oh, did it hit a sweet spot for you?
Oh, that's a good, that's good stuff. Yeah,
It's like you were blowing food, like,
yeah. Oh, I want to talk. I want to talk. I want to talk. Let me talk. Let me talk. Yeah, in regard to the gender thing too, we're going to touch on this stuff. But first and foremost, what you just said, Kevin, about this is going to require some work from the people who are watching. We're asking you to do it, and we're asking you to engage us, engage with
yes,
us,
yes,
right? Because when we say we're tracking the story, we're also tracking the story as it resonates within us. So we want
right,
you to track the story with us. How does it
right,
resonate within you? And we have the comments. We're hoping too that we'll go live sometimes, and that people will be able to actually speak. Maybe we'll figure out how to do call in and stuff like that. But for the moment, the comments, we'll want to know, how does this resonate for you? In regard to the gender stuff too, one of the things is, in particular for the European stories, most of them were recorded, as I've learned. Okay, it's my impression that most of them are recorded by men, and a lot of them are recorded by monks. in the abbeys and in the religious tradition. And so, lo and behold, in the Western European tradition, you don't see a lot of female or women-centric stories. Huh, what happened? Well, it was guys telling the stories, guys writing them down in a church that was male-centric.
Right.
You got the father and the son. Wait, where's the mother and the sister? Okay.
That's right. That's right.
They kicked them out of the out of the storytelling space. And so we acknowledge that. I acknowledge it. I just heard Kevin acknowledge it.
Can I just acknowledge something else too?
Yeah.
And so I just want the audience to know I often struggle with tending to these stories, and Matt can attest to that. As a Black man, and I'm like, okay, where do I fit into a lot of these stories? And for me, like class things, arise, just disparity, right? So I'm coming into this like just noticing like what is not right or in alignment. And so I always share with Matt, just like, hey, I just want to share this story as like, with my group as just a normal person. But why do, I'm like, I'm always approaching these stories with this feeling of disconnection sometimes. And so it'll be interesting to see how our conversations go as we begin to feature different stories that we're working on. So I say that to say that the intersection of race and class and who gets to tell a story and why is a story being told, one that doesn't obscure the truth, because there's truth in there and there's medicine in mostly any and every story. And so sometimes it's like working to overcome those barriers to actually hear the truth of a story. So one, I hope that that this community can support one another to overcome those boundaries or those barriers, first of all. And then the second piece is, I don't know, I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I'll hop on that train. When I heard you say, whose stories can we, is it okay for us to tell a story? I thought the word came up for me as appropriation, which is an issue, white appropriation of stuff from around the world. So it does come up to me that like, you're going to tell a story and we're going to feed a story from North Africa. Not North Africa, India.
India, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the first story is a Hindu, is a Hindu tale, but also has a lot of class things, associated with caste and yeah.
So, I mean, to me, the thing is like, well, where do I get off telling a story like that or feeding it? Lily white, homogenized milk skin tone. Is this just me doing another Elvis, taking a great song written by somebody else and saying that I'm the source of that? No. But I'm aware of that. This is a risky thing for me to do. There could be people who say, who do you think you are? Doing this. You're doing more of that white racism stuff, pal. Okay, the one thing that I want to acknowledge then is I encourage you to say things like that to me.
Me or our audience?
I'm in the audience.
Yeah,
Andrew,
I'm like
you get to say it too. Anybody get you, please.
Yeah, but I'm not the cultural racial gatekeeper.
No, you don't.
Right,
no,
right.
I mean,
and this is, and I want to make this clear. This is not that we're going to all attack Matt forum too. So we're not, we're not going to do that.
I'm not the representative of all white
thank
people.
you.
Just as you're not the representative of all Black people.
Exactly.
That's on the table too. All of
it. And I want to say this other thing. If you reference our title page, and if you assume that I'm the Black fallen angel, and I'm just calling it fallen angel, and Matt is the white one, then you may be sorely mistaken.
Yeah. It's okay. It's all okay. We and people get to have their impressions, Are those fallen angels? Are they angels?
Right.
They're just guys with wings. I don't know. We can talk about that too. That's got its own story. So I just wanted to touch on that, anybody can, if that appears to be happening, if even you hear that, wait a minute, they're going to tell this story, this Hindu story, where did they get, who told them that
Right.
they could do that? So
Right.
one of the things that I assume is this: these stories are out there to help. People from cultures all over the world are offering their stories. I'm assuming that the stories have an intention, that that they're here because this time right now, any particular story is here because it's helping. That may sound a little crazy, and I can get into all sorts of shenanigans, thinking, well, it's okay for me to take what I want to take because I think the story wants me to take it. That's a bunch of bull, right? No. What I'm saying is we're in a really messed up space.
Space.
I'm talking about pain, and it's been going on for a long time. And these stories have been used to help for a long time. So I come at this with, please, can I use these stories to help
Yeah.
with respect?
So Matt, so let's just go ahead and just land this plane for this conversation. And if you can say like briefly, like how are we going to do this? So we have a format in mind, which we're going to take recordings of the story and attach to the different episodes. But do you want to say anything? Do you want to give specific guidance or direction?
Well, I do. Okay, first and foremost, the first story is, we're going to tell them what the story is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to record. Tell us just like give us a brief of the story.
It's one of my favorite Buddhist tales. It comes, we tell this, well, first of all, yeah, I'm a Buddhist and I teach in the Theravada tradition. And a lot of teachers love to tell the story of Angulimala, the man who collected 999 fingers, and he only needed one more finger to collect to impress, to give a positive impression on a teacher. Very long and complicated story, but this is the first story that we're going to harvest, feed, track, nurture, tend to with one another. And yeah, so we'll begin to do that next week, and we'll attach the link to these webcasts so that you can be able to give your analysis in the chat. Wait a minute, did you just reverse that on me? I thought you were. Hey, how did that?
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, I'm picking it up. I just heard you. Thank you for sharing your spiritual practice. I'll share that what I bring my practice is I practice daily the 12-step program. So you're gonna, yeah, amen.
Me too.
Give me a virtual bam.
Bam.
So, if you hear that language, you'll know that I practice it daily. Okay. And I've actually been practicing the study of story, or my following story. I wouldn't say that I've actually practiced study of story in the same way that I've practiced following the 12 steps. So now I'm kind of bringing that same thing. That's why I'm here with you. It's like, wait a minute, I recognize this thing. This is a truly healing method. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask people, when Kevin records the story, we're going to put it in the link below. You'll go to that, and it'll probably be 20 minutes long. We're going to ask you to listen to it, listen to Kevin's telling, and then come back next week, and we're going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we say talk about it, that's where the words tracking, feeding, nurturing, harvesting, what were some of the other ones? Tending. Yeah.
Tending.
Yeah.
Like a garden.
Right. Right. Because that's what happens with the stories. And so the little direction I'm going to give people is, when a story is told, it is like seeds are being offered. They don't necessarily get planted or blossom, but some of them usually will And if we'll allow ourselves, allow ourselves to be aware that, wait, that thing is blossoming in me. When ahimsaka,
Yep.
at the beginning, can I share one part of the story?
No. Okay.
Okay. When he's born, no, don't you want me to tell that? Okay. All right. I won't tell any part of it. It's a good story. It blossomed in me. Kevin will tell you, right? There was one part about the birth where I was like, wait a minute, what the hell? You know, so the blossoming can look like a red fire flower. Like, what the hell? That's pissing me off. That's okay. That's what the story's for. It is my belief that's what these were made for. Okay. It could also come up as a light blue water flower, you know, resting in a pond. I could start to feel like I'm going to weep. I can't believe that happened. That reminds me of this thing. See, so that's the thing where I said that the stories are made with hooks for us to put our emotions on. Remember, so that's what we're asking. Remember the flowers that blossom when the stories are told, and then share that with us in your comments.
Yep.
It's all the work that we're asking you to do.
And it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm going to use Matt's words. You're going to like this.
You are. I think it's like a nice cool glass of water after I've been walking on a long hot day, you know? It really does. And it's also intoxicating to me. Be careful, because you might get hooked on this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, you know, in a world, I'll use the words of our friend Malidoma Somé, in a world, and it's paraphrased, filled with compulsive addictive behaviors, why not put that kind of energy towards doing something healthy? Like tracking a story. Let yourself be hooked by this. There's no hangover. There's only healthy product. What will also be found is that if you will allow yourself, the story will feed you. When difficult moments come up in my life, there are times when I'll remember a story and I'll be like, oh, that's how it got worked out there. Maybe I could try that. Because a lot of these stories are about people facing life as life sometimes shows up. With
messy, confusing, difficult, ugly, beautiful,
gaslighting.
Oh yeah.
You name it, life is going to show up that way, and that's what these stories are about. They're asking you to say it's okay to talk about it. So there is going to be a feeling of trust. You don't know us very well. Maybe over time we're gonna keep coming here. We'll keep being here, and to me, that's a big part of trust. You get to share what you feel comfortable sharing. Nobody's asking anybody. This is not therapy. We're not going to fix anybody here. Oh hell no.
Hell no. My codependency is beginning to surface up.
I'm not gonna fix
come on, let me fix you.
Yeah, no gurus here. And if we start to look like that, please call me. If I start to look like that, I'll speak for myself. Please, you get to call me out on it.
Same.
You know, if I start to behave that way. So that's what I have to say about it, is like, go to the story, listen to it, maybe take some notes, do a drawing. If you feel like, I don't know, in the comments, can people actually post images? No, I don't think so.
No. But we'll work on it. So what we're doing is we're also cultivating community that will blossom beyond the comment section of this, YouTube gathering or so forth. And so that's further down the road. But we just right now what we're looking for is early adopters of this webcast, right? Because we're getting this message and method out.
Right.
We're spreading it out. So
I want to say that again too, because I'm a visual storyteller. That's the way my brain worked from probably day one. If you get imagery and you think, well, I'm not an artist, other people are artists, screw that. Draw.
Oh, and they can send it to CROSS-EYED.CRUCIBLE@gmail.com.
Right. So we'll put that too. Like if you want to send us images, we're going to work that in. We're going to say, okay, this is a person's response. This doesn't just have to be a verbal audio experience. We want to say that, look, the brain is going to respond in this. And if you respond in music, we'll figure out how to get that on too. You know, we want the tracking and the harvesting and the tending to be, and the feeding to be evident. So hang with us, come out and play with us. This is going to be fun. This is, and scary.
And scary. As we say in Oakland, hella scary. Hella scary. But Matt.
Yeah, I want to say one last thing. These, the scary part is, in my experience, these stories have consequences. I'm not talking about hocus pocus. I'm talking about deeper things happen than, oh, I just heard a story. If I invest in a story, meaning I feed it, I harvest it, I tend it, I track it, the story, not only am I working the story, but the story starts to work me.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to hear a Buddhist story. And I can't tell any more about it, but if I do work the story, then I am allowing the story's Buddhist healthy instruction to have an effect on me. And that's change, and change can be scary and certainly risky. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right, let's walk on out of the cross-eyed crucible. And and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the feedback that I received from the first episode. People were like, your lighting, you really need to work on that lighting. So I want to just thank my friends out there who gave me that feedback.
Yeah.
And Matt, your dancing is wonderful. I got a lot of good comments about that. They said, you need to hang up with, you need to catch up to your buddy Matt. So
yeah, I told Kevin I was a little self-conscious about my dancing. I just didn't want to look like old white guy dancing in there. So, but I love to dance. I've always danced. So I don't care. I'm a dance. That's what I'm going to do. So, thank you, everybody. We're going to dance our way out of here.
Yeah.
We'll see you further down the road. We'll see you in a week.
Yep.
Okay.